Good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good evening. Welcome back to another electrifying episode of the Growth Talk with Glenn, where we dive deep into the world of business and personal development. Today, we have an exceptional guest, one of my brothers, fellow business coaches out there in the tennis community, Jake Shannon, the chief revenue coach renowned for his rapid revenue results. With an impressive background in financial engineer, best-selling author, and pioneer in sports and coaching. Jake, what's going on, brother?
Dude, Glenn, man, I am so happy because I love you, man, and I'm really actually I'm not one of those people. I'm pretty sparing with my accolades, honestly. I probably should be more giving, but dude, you deserve it. You're an animal. You always come with like just that winning freaking mindset and attitude and vibe, dude. And I just always love being in a room or in a conversation with you because you really bring it. So I'm stoked to be here. And hopefully we can help some people today.
We will. We will. I promise you that, man. Jake, if you don't mind, introduce yourself, man. Who are you? What is that you do? Who do you help? And how do you help?
Well, okay. First and foremost, I think, if I were to really open up and be honest about how I identify myself or whatever, I'm a family man, first. And second, I'm a person that has learned to really love to do hard things.
Hmm.
Um, and because of that, I think I've had some modest successes in my life, and in those areas, I love to help people. And so again, family first for me always. And then second, these areas where I can help people is I've had some modest success as a entrepreneur. I've also had some success in the field of coaching, in particular for helping mixed martial arts athletes improve their wrestling, because wrestling is the biggest predictor of champions in MMA. So I help people in MMA that are trying to transition from like a scholastic wrestling background, or those that are in MMA and don't have a scholastic background and need to have that kind of training to be competent and win in the modern mixed martial arts scene.
I love that. I love that. Jake, would it be possible if you can share with us the genesis of Sportify method and how
Oh
it
yeah, wait.
integrates gamification with leadership?
Okay, so yeah, here's it, and I don't know if that's
There
showing
you
up. There
go.
we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Sportify. And so this is the first, my vision is for this is I'm creating a whole library of books. This one I came out 1 year ago, and it's Sportify Beyond Business Gamification. I have a new one that's dropping. It's actually my publisher is the one that's slowing everything up, and it's Sportify Beyond Business Ethics. And
Mm.
then the next installation, which I'm already starting right now and writing right now, is Sportify Beyond Business Leadership. And so there's this framework that I call the Sportify framework. And I really did stumble on it because of this concept of gamification. So
Yes.
let me unpack that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Really, the whole premise is this. I find that it goes beyond just a metaphor or an analogy or a simile, but I really do think there's something to this, that business is a sport.
Mm.
And I really decided to go very deep down this rabbit hole. In fact, this is one of the things that I really love about Grant Cardone, and what attracted me to really throw so much of my efforts and my own personal brand in with the partnership with Grant in the same way that you have, right? That brotherhood that we have. I feel that Grant is that same way. I know Grant came from, playing baseball and having a strong sport. He's always reminded me of an athletic coach. His
Mm.
approach, it's kind of direct, it's aggressive. He's like, dude, I don't really care what, put numbers on the board kind of thing. And so what I began to notice was that there's all these really great connections between sports and business. I'd always kind of known that, but I wasn't really really focused on it. And my wife and I, one of the companies that I have, my wife and I run a software company. And as a result, I'm looking at this concept of gamification. And what gamification is this idea of, and we all see it, it's taking elements from games and applying them to business. So for example, leaderboards or badges.
Yeah.
These things that happen in games, well, we can use those to incentivize behavior in our business, right? So we put employees or salespeople on a leaderboard and yada, yada, yada. Well, as I started studying that and getting introduced to it and reading the literature on it for business, for my software company or our software company, I realized that there kept coming up to these limitations of gamification because there's two types of motivation. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch, but in this framework, there's the idea of intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Gamification focuses on extrinsic motivation, like the dangling the carrot so that the horse follows the carrot, right? Yeah. Same with the whip, right? Like anything that's external. But there wasn't, the second you took those away, they lost interest or they weren't motivated. They didn't have intrinsic or internal motivation.
Interesting.
And I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about the difference between games and sports. If I see a video game, people are enthusiastic. Yeah, hell, my kids, that's all they do all day. They love games. Everybody loves games. Great. But there's a difference between a gaming enthusiast and a sporting enthusiast. A sporting enthusiast will riot and overturn cars and destroy a city. We've seen this at like championship games and hooligans in soccer and sporting. The difference is there's a few differences obviously between sports and games, but the thing is sports has that internal intrinsic motivation, and a lot of that comes from coaching. Games don't have coaches. Sports have coaches that really take a vested interest in the individual's development and pushing them and developing them. Now, obviously, another element that's different is the physicality. And I do believe that to be a performer, whether you're a sales performer or a CEO, an executive that has certain KPIs that you have to hit, or you're a boxer or a soccer player or a football player, whatever, it requires a physical element to it. So you need to be an integrated, complete person, physical, mental, spiritual, to really pull all of this together. And that's kind of really the bare bones of the Sportify framework that I'm developing. So the first book is going beyond gamification, talking about moving from the external motivation to the internal motivation. The second book that should be released, hopefully, if my publisher can get things going in the next week or two, is Beyond Business Ethics, because this is another thing that I really love about Grant. He has this premise that sales needs to be ethical and transparent, and I believe in that. And I think that, if there is no ethics in a sporting game, man, people freak out. They're yelling at the ref. They're like, they have nothing to, but that doesn't happen in business like it should. And I'm trying to bring that element with Sportify Beyond Business Ethics, the second installation in the Sportify book series. I'm trying to bring to the forefront this idea of good sportsmanship, and let's bring that into business. What are the different ways we can implement the same kind of ethics that we maintain in these sportive events into business? Right?
So with that same concept, with the same concept and the ethics from the sports into the business, and also your background in financial engineering, how do you leverage all that to enhance revenue strategies with different industries?
Okay, so like you mentioned earlier, and I appreciate the plug. My landing page, the URL points to it's Chief Revenue Coach. Okay, It's taken me a while. I like playing with branding. That's why I've got this number one. I love brands, and I have a knack a little bit for it. And sometimes it takes properly positioning a brand so people understand what you're doing, especially when maybe it's more complicated or obscure, the things that you're doing. And so, uh, what I do, say for Sportify, when a company engages with me, is it's really about aligning the team at the company around the mission, vision, and values. And if need be, making sure the mission, vision, and values has revenue as a key to that. I think that's the fastest way I can explain as to what I do. But what it actually looks like is I have a client engagement. They hire me, and I come in, and I really am like a fractional chief revenue officer. I come in, I look at the team, I look at the sales process, I look at the marketing process, I look at what everybody's doing on I don't like to call it a chart of uh, titles or whatever, the org chart. I call it like an org chart of accountability, because I want to see what people are actually doing. And I want to make sure that everybody is in alignment. I believe everybody in the company is in sales, whether you're the CEO or you're the janitor. Every single person has to be understanding without revenue, there's no salary. so I make sure that trickles down. And it really, the Sportify framework, what I do a lot of is leadership training. So it's a lot with C-suite executives, and it's having them understand that, there's all kinds of different philosophies on leadership out there. Obviously we just saw John Maxwell and there's all servant leadership, and there's all these different philosophies. And I don't even know where this fits in, but my belief in leadership is very simple. And it's that you're a leader because you go first. Like if I'm at a river and I'm with let's say I'm in a herd of animals, the leader is the one that goes into the water first and everybody else follows.
Yes.
And so what that means is that if you expect the janitor to be into sales, then you need to be into sales. You need to understand all these things. You have to go first. If you want your staff to give a crap about professional development, you have to be the one showing up. If you want them to show up early, you need to show up late or early. If you want to make sure they're staying after and doing the extra work, you got to stay after. So for me, leadership is about the person going first with whatever it is they want people to do. Nobody's going to do what you wouldn't do yourself.
Yes. I was just going to say that as a leader, and I see this happening a lot with business owners and leadership positions. They expect others to do things that they don't do.
Well, they won't follow, or they won't for long, because it's like, that again, a leader leads. They're the ones going first, and then everybody follows. And then you're like, yeah, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to get beat up. Now other people might be willing to get beat up because they see that you're doing that hard work. And then you can give it to them and get onto the other thing and inspire other people to do that. And then you can get them on that thing. So, I think that's a big part of what I do. Now, the financial engineering part, that's an interesting piece, because financial engineering is essentially like rocket science. I mean, really, that's where the field came from. It wasn't even its own. I was the first crop of people to ever earn a master's degree in financial engineering back over 20 years ago. 2002 is when I got my master's in this, okay? What they used to do before there was a specific field is they would, like Wall Street, would steal people from mathematics departments, engineering departments, physics departments, and then have them come and work at Wall Street and do this modeling, this mathematical modeling of these complex processes and systems and risks inside of the taking them out of, say, physics or math and putting them in the financial industry, a lot of times around the idea of risk. Like how do we structure, say, futures, forward swaps, options in a way to develop a synthetic security made out of all these other securities to manage a risk we have this risk exposure in mortgages, say, like how do we hedge the risk of payment of a mortgage because I can model out cash flows.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's easy when I know that there's going to be 30 years of monthly payments, no problem. Or a car, I could say 60 payments, I can model that. But when they start prepaying, oh, geez, now my models and my valuations aren't what they need to be. And so I did a lot of that work for a long time. And it was interesting because prior to that, you know me well. So just to preface this for people who might not know me, I'm obsessed with wrestling, right? And so I have a really fun company that's taken me around the world and is somewhat known in the industry of mixed martial arts that focuses on wrestling. And I went to UFC 2 as I think I was 20 years old. It blew my mind. It's like one of those days where you remember it changed your life. I decided then I want to do this. I want something to do. I moved out of Colorado where I was at the University of Colorado. I moved to California to pursue it, and I was dirt poor. I mean, dirt poor. I didn't know how to make money. Nobody in my family really knew how to make money. And I decided to take this huge risk. So I ended up moving to Northern California. I moved to San Francisco, which at the time, after New York, was the second most expensive city in the United States. I was working 4 minimum wage jobs, plus tried to pursue this athletic endeavor. And it just was brutal. It eventually just broke me because I couldn't do everything. I couldn't make enough money to survive on these minimum wage jobs. I couldn't pay for the chiropractor and the care that it took to fix my body after working out. And so one day, and this was a pivotal moment. I truly believe that, you know what, I talked about doing hard things. And doing hard things puts you in a mental state where you are broken a lot. And you really question yourself, and sometimes you're disgusted with yourself. And that's really what happened here is I remember I was working so hard and not getting anywhere. I had been doing these multiple jobs, and I'm like in my mid-20s. I'm seeing other people get successful, and I'm just like a loser. And I remember I was on break. And again, these are all minimum wage jobs. You got a half hour for lunch. And for me, my big treat that I would give to myself, because I was eating pretty much like ramen and eggs. That was like all I could afford, and had enough protein and carbs, and that's all. I didn't have any variety, nothing. Well, my one treat was at lunch across the street at this used bookstore that I was a clerk for, that I was working at. Across the street was this Chinese restaurant. There's a lot of them in San Francisco. It was in the Richmond district. And I could jump across there, and they had a $2 lunch special. They just put a couple scoops of rice, a couple scoops of whatever, Kung Pao chicken or whatever into the box. And then I could jet back to the break room and scarf my food down. And that was like my treat. I thought I was awesome because I could afford a $2 lunch special. It was like so sad, so pathetic. Anyway, so one day I do this, and I'm beat down, dude. Like I'm working so much, and it's just like it's killing me. And I'm rushing because I'm like, I gotta wolf this down and get right. I only have a half hour that they give me for lunch. So I'm scarfing it so fast. I get halfway through the box, and I look into it finally, and it's just filled with cockroach carcasses. Yeah. And so I was like, oh my God, I just ate how many? I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like I clearly ate some stuff I didn't want to eat. And the really sad thing then was that I was so broke and needed the calories because I was working out so hard and working so hard. I actually took my chopsticks and picked out the rest of the parts I could find, and I ate the rest of it.
Wow.
And you know what, man? That I was so disgusted with myself being in that. I'm like, what am I doing that I'm eating? I'm picking out cockroaches so I have enough food to eat.
Wow.
Like, this is not acceptable. I don't know where I got this romanticized notion of that, like, as an athlete, I've got to suffer like this, or, it's just stupid. And I just broke, and I said, okay, enough. And I decided to learn whatever I could do about money. Now, I didn't have a Grant Cardone back then. as a mentor. Neither my parents knew how to make money. Like my dad worked for the Denver Public Schools and my mom was a secretary. Like they weren't money people and I didn't have anybody rich. And so the only thing I thought, and I knew back then, again, this is about 1997, was go to school. Really, this is before the internet and there was all this content you could get for free. So I enrolled at the oldest university, private school in California. It's called Golden Gate University. It's in San Francisco. And I started out in the applied economics department.
Yeah.
And I found I had an English degree, so I didn't even have a math background. But I was like, economics, I think that's something to do with money. Let me just figure out how money works. And as I got in there, I was like, you know what? This is actually not challenging enough. And I asked the dean of the finance department, what's the hardest program that pays the most? And he said, this one, we just started. It's called financial engineering. I was like, all right, let's go. And it's mostly about financial mathematics, like statistics, advanced topics in statistics, the stochastic calculus, which has to do with random variables, and a lot of options and derivatives like futures, forward swaps, things of that nature. So I did that. And I ended up getting my degree, and I ended up getting some really great jobs in Berkeley and LA. And, by the time I was 30, now I'm making close to $200,000.
Wow.
So it was a real shift, especially as a young man, right? And what that did for me was, Grant is actually kind of my second billionaire mentor. My first mentor didn't know he was my mentor, and Grant may not even know. I mean, I've talked to him a couple times, but he may not even really know. But the thing is this guy in LA, he was a billionaire, and it was me and 8 Harvard MBAs, and I ended up doing all the calculus and the spreadsheets and all that stuff. But I started getting an ear for actually how to make money, not having it being an employee, but like, what does it really take? And I did that for a while, met my wife, and, the thing is investment banking, it's extremely ridiculous amount of hours. It's 12 to 14 hours a day is what they expect when you're at the lower level, and even at the higher. It's like consuming. And my wife got pregnant in 2007, let's say, or 2006. And I just had to sit back and be like, man, what is it? And I told you, I first identified myself as a family man, something that's very important to me. When I grew up, my mom and dad divorced when I was 4. My dad remarried and divorced 4 times, and my mom married and divorced twice. And I never had that as a kid. And so as a kid, it's important, and it's an adult now, my whole life. The most important thing for me to have is a family. Selfishly, it's like what I want, number one. And so when I was looking at like the trade-offs here, like, okay, I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but then I'm not going to be able to spend any time with my kids. And my wife was working for this software company at the time. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, man, I know enough about business. I know enough about working at software. I did a couple really good software jobs. I think that we might be able to grow this company and take it over kind of with a leveraged buyout kind of situation down the road. And that's what we ended up doing. We ended up acquiring the company in 2018. And that's what brought me to Grant, was that once I was in there, I realized, oh my God, there's so much to a business. And I have this strong quantitative and analytical background, but I need to really figure out the revenue side. And I just fell in love with it. Grant is such a great mentor and has really taught me so much. And so that's kind of how I find myself now. And it's so to your question, it's a very long answer, and I apologize.
No.
But it's so funny. So I don't do much actually with the financial engineering in my day-to-day now, but it was instrumental because it got me to my first billionaire mentor. It allowed me to start thinking about things in a radically different way.
It's absolutely, it's part of you, of your growth, your story, the decision that you made in order to do that. That's crazy, man. Listen, if you had an opportunity to coach any historical figure in leadership and revenue generation, who would that be? And why?
Wow. Well, clearly I would only want to coach somebody who was not more successful than me, right? And there's so many, and usually in history, we only know the people that are successful. I would actually, what I would love to do if I were to coach somebody, when it comes to revenue and money and that kind of stuff, it would probably be one of these, pardon my language, and I apologize, but I have to use it because I don't think there's a better word. One of these dipshit politicians that is just driving us into debt. So I would love any of them, man. They're all like, it's like, I don't know how our political process has become so expert at selecting the worst possible person for a position. It's like they've got it down to find the absolute worst person to put into a position of power.
Oh my,
That's what I would love to coach. It's like,
hey, you never know. There's an opportunity. Boom, take it. Idea,
well,
go to
yeah,
the.
but I got involved with politics, and man, that is the worst. I run the opposite direction now because it's just such a disaster, and it is filled with some of the worst people. Um, I think that I'm again not making any friends in politics here, but I think politics tends to attract psychopaths,
Wow,
people that are just bad people in their own nature,
wow,
um, people that are not caring, that are going into politics for power and not for the right reasons. I think that our system rewards that, unfortunately. And I'm a proud American. I'm a patriot. I consider myself, one of the biggest fans and supporters of the Bill of Rights. I mean, the Constitution. A lot of people talk about Constitution. That's great, but the Bill of Rights, that First Amendment, Second Amendment, third, all of the first 10. I'm a huge advocate for all that. I just feel that part of the reason I've doubled down on revenue is I think that it's the last one of the last places for people to find true freedom. I
wow,
think that a lot of the ways that politics has gone, still America's I think the best in the world, but it's definitely becoming more like the rest of the world, and that's not good.
wow. Jake, how do you balance innovation with the foundational aspects of revenue coaching in a rapidly changing business environment that we are? How do you balance that?
Well, one of the things um, when I got into financial engineering, it required me to up my level of thinking
Mhm.
analytically. And the people with the highest IQs are not mathematicians; they're actually philosopher. Philosophy in academia is actually a very challenging and rigorous subject, even though it seems like they're a bunch of spaced out hippies or whatever and never have an answer. So I got real deep into philosophy, in particular, the philosophy of science. And I think a modern America has lost faith, rightfully so, in establishment science. We've seen in the last couple of years how ridiculous that people are, people that claim things are scientific, it's not so, and that they've got bad incentives and they're behaving unethically.
Mhm.
Um, to me, this question about innovation really goes to the heart of what real science is. So my wrestling company is actually called Scientific Wrestling,
Yeah.
and the real, again, man, I'm sorry to keep cussing on your show, and this one's going to be worse. Uh, but I think that the core of actual real science, not this Anthony Fauci bullcrap, but like real science, is this idea of fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
And that's what innovation is. And
Mm,
so, if you're going to innovate, it requires you first to understand what are the laws of physics. For example, in engineering, if I want to innovate the wheel, if I want to improve the wheel or something, I have to understand how the world actually works first. That's first and foremost. That's why when I wanted to innovate in finance, which I've done, I created the first reverse mortgage servicing rights model. I believe it's still in practice today, 20 years
wow.
later. Um, uh, my point is you have to, whatever it is that you're going to try to innovate in, you need to understand how it works now, right? Like I think Picasso has a quote that says like study like a master so you could break the rules like a master or something like that. Like you need to actually understand what the structure, the rules and whatnot. So for example, in wrestling, one of my big mentors is a gentleman named Wade Chalice. And he's actually out in Orlando. He's there in Florida. Now, this guy is on record, like for all anything that's quantifiable and you could check. This guy has the Guinness record for the most wins and pins in all of recorded wrestling.
Wow.
The reason this is important, it's here's a guy who's clearly pinnacle, like the top guy in the planet. Now, not a lot of people know about him because the two Olympics, he beat everybody at the world's tournaments during the 76 and the 80 Olympics. But during 76, he beat everybody, but then broke his neck, couldn't compete. And then in the 80 Olympics, and he beat everybody in the world. So he would have had 2 gold medals in the Olympics. First one he got out because he broke his neck. Second one in 80, he beat everybody, but then President Carter boycotted the Olympics and none of our athletes could perform. So this guy's the winningest wrestler and nobody's heard of him. Anyway.
That's crazy.
How is this relevant to innovation? And again, if we say business is a sport, these ideas from sports can translate well over to business. And this concept is that what I was talking about, you got to understand reality and the boundaries before you begin pushing them. And so for example, in this case, what Wade would do is what he calls legal pain. And what that means is, what are the rules and how can I go right up to the edge and really work the boundaries?
Push it to the limit.
The boundaries is where the innovation is going to happen.
No pain, no gain.
You got to do hard things. That's just like, to me, you got to do hard things.
That's crazy, man.
And the thing is it's not even, it doesn't matter whether you actually actively do them, because, if you don't take charge of the hard things you do, then life is going to assign the hard things like obesity, illness, poverty. Wow. So you can always have hard things. You're going to have problems. But, the question you got to ask is, do I want rich person problems or poor person problems? Do I want healthy person problems or sick person problems? And then you could start designing the hard things that you have to do to be that person.
Wow. That's actually me personally making that decision, like you mentioned, like when I decided and understood that I needed to become a better version of myself. And it was all about becoming that person in order to achieve the goals and targets. And what you say, like when you do the hard things and you continue doing that, when the hard thing comes, it's easy. Because you just continuously doing the hard thing, so it becomes your new normal. If that even makes sense.
I mean, and you could just put it into a routine. Every morning I wake up, my alarm goes off at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. I roll out of bed, I bend over, stretch, touch my toes, maybe go to the bathroom, but then I get down, I bang out 50 push-ups and 100 squats.
Wow.
It takes it's like 3 minutes of time. Not even 3. It's literally like 50 seconds and 100 seconds. So 150 seconds. Like it's slightly over 2 minutes.
Wow. And you're getting your workout done right away, out of the way.
No matter what. Now I could still do another workout. I could still go do the other, but I got that done. I got it done. No matter what. I could do that in a hotel. I could do that
anywhere.
Because I don't need I don't have to change my clothes. My poor wife, I'm like, mate, my elbows are cracking and probably keeping her awake while, my elbows are cracking while I'm doing my push-ups or whatever, or hearing me breathe heavy while I'm doing my squats, but sleep in then. Put a pillow over your head because I'm going to do this. And it's only 2 minutes.
I love it. I love it. You got to do the hard things every single day, especially first things in the morning.
Well, yeah, right. We do it when you actually have energy and when you're fresh, or in this case, before I even think, I'm like, my brain's not even on. I'm just like, okay, I got to get this done. Or
boom.
If I don't start with this kind of momentum, I'm not going to have the momentum.
Setting your way up to success right there. Boom, right in the morning. Do the hard things. I love that.
100%.
Jake, as we getting close to wrapping this up, what would be a great recommendation or an amazing recommendation, because I know you're gonna do that, to someone that is looking to start a business or even take their current business to the next level?
Okay, so I'm just going to be totally straight.
Yeah.
If somebody is watching this and they want to start their own business, um, you got to seriously think about this, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to tell you, it's stupid and it's selfish to want to do this, to start your own business. But this is the same advice I give to an athlete that wants to be a champion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you want to win this gigantic competition. First thing I need you to understand, it's probably a stupid idea, and it requires selfishness. It's not even that it's like selfish. I mean, maybe it is a little selfish or self-centered or whatever, but you're gonna miss events with your friends, events with your family. You're gonna have to tell other people, not like you got to get rid of 9 to 5 and start thinking about 5 to 9.
Yeah.
Dude, this is like probably a stupid decision that you're making. Now, I'm telling you this as a stupid guy who's done this over and over, been stupid. So I want to make sure that this person actually knows what the hell they're getting themselves into. That would be the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is I'd be like, okay, are you coachable? You know, I've made so many mistakes. Can we just skip those? Can I tell you some of the things that I would do? First thing, I wouldn't start a new business. I'd go buy a business. Because now this is the difference, right? Like, you know, I've worked with you, I've hired you, like you're an expert in marketing, dude. Like digital marketing stuff. It's like I can't do everything, and so I need to find guys like you that are super smart.
Thank you.
Because I'm stupid and I'm trying to grow these companies. So I need to go find, right? What's the thing you need for a company? You need as many qualified buyers as possible. That's where I'm like, Glenn, dude, I need your help, bro. I need people to talk to and pitch. And you're like, okay, here's all the leads. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. Your noob entrepreneur thinks the hardest part is product and service development. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you haven't even done anything once you have a product. Like you're not even, dude, oh my God, you're up for so much abuse. You don't even know. You haven't even done anything yet. And they think like, oh, I've got this great. It's like, dude, you made a landing page and came up with an offer, dude. That's like this much of what needs to happen now.
Yeah.
So the advantage of buying a company, for example, when we did this buyout of this software company, I'm already buying the list. I don't need to build a list. I already got clients. That's the hardest part.
It is. It is.
So that would be my real advice. Look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, yeah, I'm an idiot and I'm a masochist, that's gonna just, I'm dumb and I'm willing to take a lot of abuse and I'm durable. Okay, good. You have what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
If you want to do it quicker, go buy a business. Go buy a business with existing clients. Go buy a business with existing processes. Go buy a business. Figure that part out. And then add your product onto their existing menu of items that you're so enamored with, right? That is, in my opinion, how do you do it quick?
I love that. It makes sense.
I hope that's useful.
Makes sense because, I know that you've seen this. I've seen this many times. When somebody wants to start a business from scratch, it seems like for some reason they're always underestimate the amount of effort, discipline, time, commitment in order to see the results. I had a conversation with the athlete the other day that he actually played pro in soccer, and it goes right to him what we're talking about, time. He said, listen, from age 4 to 14, I was training like a maniac. And I got to see the results in 10 years. And back to what you're saying, he said this to me. He said, I see business as a sport. Why? Because I knew when I was a kid, it took me 10 years of effort in order to make it and see the big results. So now I can go to any business with the mentality and say, I don't mind going at it for 10 years because I know what it takes.
Yeah, I mean, and that is really like I heard Grant, bringing this full circle to Grant and our connection. I heard Grant say exactly what you're saying, and that like, the idea behind 10x, yeah, there's all these ideas about, set 10x goals and all, but he's like the real juice of it, the real golden nugget is that it's going to take 10 times more effort than
Yes.
what you expect, and you have to do it anyway.
Yes. That being said, what 10x means to you, bro?
So 10x is a really cool concept to me because again, like I mentioned briefly at the beginning, I'm a branding guy, and for me, what I love about it is that for me, I worked in investment banking, whatever. So 10x looks like a valuation to me. Like 10
Mm,
times earnings is what you're going to sell the company for, right? Like that was the first thing. I'm like, oh, that's genius. That's going to hit the right people. But then he was able to expand the meaning beyond like
yeah.
evaluation, like beyond a multiple into all these other ideas. So I think for me, I will always probably first pop into my mind, the valuation on an exit of a company, just to be
Mm,
real.
I love
But then I try to take at heart what Grant said the real meaning is, and that is about what you brought up about, that you're right, that the estimation of effort.
it. I love it, man. Jake, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time, your knowledge, your expertise, your insights, your story. I did not know your story. And there's so much power behind the story. Jake, as we always do, we always over deliver. We always are providing massive value, especially to our audience. Would it be okay if we close with a quote?
Let's go. Love
From
it.
page 9 to 85, you pick a number.
9 to 85. Let's pick, okay, 77.
Oh, that's a great one. Let's see what we got. Ooh, that's crazy. That goes right along of what Jake was talking about, doing the hard things and like do not underestimate the time, right? Here we go. Keep showing up long after your competitors has given up. We didn't plan this, by the way. Keep showing up long after your competitors have given up. Jake, again, man, thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Always wishing you the best of success, health, and wealth. And let's go help more people to be the best
Thank you,
version of
Glenn.
themselves.
That
Let's
was fun, man. Always a pleasure. Anything I could do to help you. Thank you so much.
likewise, brother. Let's go.